The year is 2025 and the world's balance of power is shifting. For decades, America led the global stage, setting the rules and calling the shots. But now, new actors are stepping forward, and the old certainties are fading. This transformation accelerated under President Trump's second term, as America's renewed America First policy created a leadership vacuum. While the US built walls, China built bridges of trade, investment and diplomacy, especially with Africa. This isn't just a rivalry, it's a clash of worldviews, nationalism versus state-led cooperation. African nations, tired of being lectured, began seeking partners who treated them as equals. The story of China's rise in Africa is about more than politics or money, it's about people whose lives are shaped by these global shifts. As we enter this new era, understanding the power shift is crucial. The world is no longer a one-man show. The stage is bigger, the cast is larger, and the spotlight is now shared. This essay explores how the shift happened, why it matters, and what it means for our interconnected future. The choices made today will shape the lives of millions tomorrow. Welcome to a world in flux. The US-China trade war was like two giants fighting in a crowded room, and Africa felt every blow. In April 2025, the Trump administration imposed a 34% tariff on Chinese goods, aiming to protect American jobs. China hit back with its own tariffs and restricted rare earth exports, disrupting the global supply chain. Stock markets tumbled and the economic shockwaves reached African shores. African economies, deeply tied to global trade, saw factories cut shifts and ports slow down. Prices soared for everyday goods, threatening years of hard-won progress. For ordinary Africans, this wasn't a distant conflict, it meant lost jobs and shrinking incomes. The trade war exposed just how interconnected the world had become. African leaders realized they needed more stable partners, not ones who would sacrifice their economies for political fights. The lesson was clear: global power struggles have local consequences. Africa could no longer afford to be caught in the crossfire. The search for new alliances began in earnest. Trust is the foundation of any friendship, but America's America First policy eroded that trust worldwide. Longtime allies faced tariffs and unpredictable policies, while African nations felt patronized and sidelined. US engagement often came with demands and warnings, especially about China's growing influence. African leaders felt talked down to, not listened to. The US withdrawal from international cooperation left a void. Meanwhile, China arrived with detailed plans for partnership and investment. African governments needed reliable partners for challenges like climate change and development. When America stepped back, China stepped forward, without the moral lectures or political strings. This shift wasn't about loving China, but about pragmatism. Africa needed partners who showed up and respected them. Even nations with strong Western ties began diversifying their alliances. America's unpredictability pushed Africa to seek consistency elsewhere. China's model of engagement offered what the US no longer did: respect, reliability, and results. The path was cleared for China's rise, not by force but by America's own choices. The friendship was on the rocks, and Africa was moving on. The global balance was changing fast. While America looked inward, China looked outward, straight to Africa. China's approach was different: partnership, not patronage; investment, not lectures. The Belt and Road Initiative brought real progress: roads, ports, and power grids that transformed daily life. Chinese leaders made Africa a diplomatic priority, building trust through consistent engagement. China became Africa's largest trading partner, fueling a powerful economic symbiosis. New infrastructure like the ECOWAS headquarters in Nigeria symbolized China's deepening influence. Critics warned of debt traps, but many African leaders saw tangible results and took the risk. China delivered what the West often only promised. For many, the appeal was simple: a partner willing to build, not just advise. The continent's future was being shaped by those who showed up and invested. China's welcome mat was out, and Africa stepped forward. America and China played the global game with very different rulebooks. The US under Trump favored confrontation and transactional deals, using tariffs as weapons and seeing diplomacy as a zero-sum game. African nations found this approach frustrating and dismissive of their priorities. US interest in Africa seemed more about countering China than genuine partnership. China, in contrast, offered patience and partnership, emphasizing a win-win model and non-interference. Chinese diplomacy was quiet, consistent, and focused on development. While America threatened aid cuts, China signed infrastructure deals. African leaders saw a clear choice: warnings and conditions, or cranes and concrete. Over time, China's respectful, business-focused approach won out. The results spoke for themselves. China's influence grew as America's waned. The diplomatic playbook that built relationships, not rivalries, proved more effective. Africa's alliances were being rewritten. In Africa, actions spoke louder than words, and China delivered. The Belt and Road Initiative brought thousands of kilometers of roads and railways, connecting regions and boosting trade. Projects like Namibia's Walvis Bay Terminal and Nigeria's ECOWAS headquarters symbolized China's deep investment. China's string of pearls strategy created new trade routes and reduced Africa's dependence on the West. Beyond transport, China built power plants and telecom networks, addressing Africa's biggest challenges. This infrastructure created jobs, improved lives, and fostered economic interdependence. In return, China secured resources and future markets. Critics pointed to debt, but many African leaders saw strategic investment and partnership. The continent wasn't just receiving aid, it was co-creating a new economic reality. The blueprints for Africa's future were being drawn up with Beijing. The global power shift isn't just theory, it's changing lives across Africa. Chinese-made goods fill supermarket shelves, making products more affordable for families. Chinese investment has created jobs, especially in manufacturing hubs like Ethiopia. But the US-China trade war brought volatility, with factory cuts and price spikes hitting ordinary people. Infrastructure projects like Nairobi's railway and Addis Abeba's light rail have transformed daily routines and business. Yet rapid development brings challenges, social tensions, labor concerns, and environmental impacts. Local businesses sometimes struggle to compete with Chinese firms. The relationship with China is complex, full of both optimism and caution. African nations are learning to balance the benefits of investment with the need to protect their own interests. The partnership is powerful, but it must be managed wisely. The future depends on making this new relationship work for Africa's people. America's distraction was China's opportunity. During Trump's second term, the US was consumed by internal divisions and crises. Domestic turmoil drained energy from foreign policy, especially in regions like Africa. As China's leaders crisscrossed Africa, American diplomatic visits dwindled. The message was clear: Africa was no longer a priority for Washington. America's soft power faded, and its economic nationalism backfired, hurting its own consumers and global standing. The US retreated from the international order it once led, creating a power vacuum. China stepped in with a clear, consistent vision and a plan for partnership. America obsessed over the past, China offered a future. The result, a historic shift in global influence, driven as much by America's absence as by China's ambition. The world was ready for new leadership. By 2025, the era of a single superpower was over. Power is now shared among several major players, with Africa and Asia rising as global decision-makers. The shift isn't temporary, it's a fundamental restructuring of the world order. America's turn inward and China's strategic engagement accelerated this change. China's success in Africa is a blueprint for winning friends through investment and respect. Global challenges now require cooperation from many nations, not just one. Smaller countries, especially in Africa, have more agency and options than ever before. They can negotiate with multiple powers to secure the best deals for their people. The new world is complex but full of opportunity. Power is about building relationships and delivering results, not just military might. The future belongs to those who build bridges, not walls. The global stage is bigger, and the spotlight is shared.